Live from the internet, it's the Narrative After Show, bringing you the entire week in review. With Rachel Bitticoffer, Eric Garland, and here's your host, Zed Chalet.
So much. I do like that. That makes me feel very good when that comes on. Very, very chipper. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the After Show. It's a Friday night. We haven't done one of these in a bit, and it's good to be back. There's been lots of news and various things going on, so we haven't had a chance to say hi to Rachel Bitticoffer for a while. How are you, Rachel?
I'm doing good. I'm out in the wild tonight doing the show from the main part of the house. See if that helps.
It actually is the signal. I got to say, Wi-Fi is better up there, by the way, just so you know. I
Well,
can tell right away.
I mean, my technical problem isn't Wi-Fi because actually my husband is a gamer. So I have Wi-Fi that like the most souped up Wi-Fi. You wouldn't even believe how
you're so clear
it's
right
like
now.
It's really strong. But yeah, my technical interruption is actually my little, who's just turned 9 but has autism. So it's really hard for him to understand, hey, I'm not available.
and he's right, by the way, because you're his priority, and he's your priority, and he shouldn't be here talking to us when if he needs you, he should have priority. So
I'm trying this time. I'm going to just try to stick out in the main part of the house.
Okay, we got it. No interruptions, not for this hour. Eric's having some trouble with his Wi-Fi, it appears, because he doesn't look like Eric Garland right now. He appears to be Ginni Thomas as Eric Garland. So maybe Eric will join us. I know he's on his way. You're a dirty mind, but it's interesting. So that'll be exciting. If anyone picks up like the Ginni Thomas outfit as an outfit for, say, Halloween this year or one of those things, I think it might be a good outfit. She's going to become a big deal by the time we get there.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that learned long ago that my actual technical skills would never meet my expectations. I have very high expectations, as people might know, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm very bad at arts and crafts. So I've always kind of sat out Halloween. But one year, in 2010, I had to go to a Halloween party for the university.
Yeah.
And it was a good year. I went as Christine O'Donnell, the I'm not a witch lady.
Which Christine O'Donnell? Who is she?
Yeah. You remember she's the one that ran in Delaware Senate, and her whole shtick. She released the commercial, and she's like, "I'm not a witch."
I remember that one. That was brilliant. That was a good year. Good year for Republicans. They did such a nice job that year. She was Republican, right? I think she was.
Today, that woman is sane. If we could get a Christine O'Donnell, we'd be like, oh, okay, things are okay.
Should be running for the presidency. So, it is interesting what's been going on. Have you been watching the hearings? Have you been watching the January the 6th hearings?
Like a hawk. Yeah, I've been pretty glued. It's been really intense too, what we've learned coming through. I think for me, the first revelation that really stuck with me was that the Proud Boys had descended kind of took point on leading the mob to the Capitol and into the Capitol, right? I don't know. I mean, for me, it's not like I bought into the idea that it wasn't an insurrection. I mean, we watched it in real time, everyone, right? And on Twitter, as they're storming the Capitol, there's we're having a conversation. Is this an insurrection? Yes, it is. It does look like an insurrection, right? But this idea that it was that was part of the orchestrated plan, that these morons actually thought if we could take Congress, the physical structure of Congress, they could disrupt the transfer of power. I was always dubious that it was truly an articulated mission, right? And now I'm like, damn. Guess it isn't. It was part of the plan.
A very detailed, long-term plan. I mean, these guys were going for it. I think sometimes that's been having investigated so many of these mini conspiracies within this larger conspiracy for so long. Every time I say one of these things, people are always so dubious because it's so how can that possibly be? It sounds so ridiculous. Like, who would plan such a thing like years in advance of even running for the elections? Why would you plan, how you're going to steal the elections? It seems ridiculous. But each time we've come across the same truth. These things have been planned for a very long time. It is crazy. It's out of this world. It's insane that people have been spending decades of their time, knowledge, money, God knows what else, to try and overthrow, the most perfect system we have on earth in terms of leading and governing a country. Why would you do that? It makes no sense. But in fact, that's just the truth. There's nothing else to it. That's just how it is. That's what happened.
Well, I mean, let's think about the long story, right? Like the old people that we're fighting now were once young, and around them were old people. Okay, and those old people were arguing, no, 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 we can't, let African Americans in the South vote because they're going to become too powerful and they're going to start to influence the South and da 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 da. And we can't let women do this, and we can't take prayer out of school, right? And especially in terms of immigration, the 1965 immigration overhaul, that's really what small L liberalized American immigration and opened it up to Asia and South America and Africa, because previous to that, of course we've had, exclusion acts all throughout history, but previous to that, generally was open to white European immigrants, right?
Yes.
And so, like, if you think about these old people who are old people now we're children of, like, they're sitting there, oh, you can't do this, it will decrease the white population, blah, 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 blah. And now here we are, fast forward 50 years, and the rubbers hit the road, and the white, hegemonic power of not just this country, but all countries is being challenged in terms of racial diversity and multiculturalism. And so when you ask why would they do it, I am here to tell you I think there would be a natural racial animus even if there was no effort to heighten it. Instead of just a little effort, we have a well-orchestrated, purposely designed media ecosystem that was designed to enhance that kind of animus. And so what we're really seeing is natural erosion of the supremacy of white men in particular. And we're also seeing that coupled with this time period where people are
yeah. I mean, we're seeing this, the old white guys are wanting to remain in control for sure. And I think maybe that's okay for them to have the say. They should be able to say that and express that without actually, tarnishing the whole constitution and overthrowing the system of government that we've had.
Maybe, I mean,
you're allowed to say those things.
I mean, they are saying it, right? Yeah. I mean, to some degree, like that's what they're saying it with their actions. They used to be more dog whistly, and now they're being pretty explicit.
They sure are.
You hear elements of, you don't hear the phrase "great replacement theory," but you hear the theory from even Senator Cornyn, the senator of Texas, who at least I think it was sometime in 2020 tweeted out a tweet about how 9 out of 10 of new Texas residents were Latinos, right? And it was very obvious what he meant by that tweet, that white people in Texas are getting replaced by Latinos coming into the state. So
meanwhile, Latinos are the new Republicans. The large chunk of the new Republicans voters are Latinos, but that's another thing. Eric, let's say good evening to you. I blamed you and your Wi-Fi, and it actually was my fault because I didn't press enter. So I'm sorry. I accused your Wi-Fi of not being amazing, but you're amazing. Eric Garland is here, and
alrighty,
and it's my fault, and I apologize. And hi,
okay.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm white. I haven't been replaced.
Oh, you're still there. Well, you were a little bit, but Ginny Thomas. You were Ginny Thomas for the first few minutes of the show. But
I was going to ask you to leave that up because it was hilarious to me.
I wonder if we can just add your voice over. I'll see if I can figure that out. We'll do one of those cutout things they used to do.
For whoever's not talking gets the Ginny Thomas.
That's yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's a little hard for me to switch around, but I'm going to try it. So she's had a big. Do you hearing what Rachel was just talking about, the old white man thing, which is really the thing that we're all sort of trying not to discuss, but it's the thing that's everywhere.
No, I wrote an essay in 2012 called "Letter to a Future Republican Strategist" regarding white people. That went viral. It was 1 million views in 6 days. It cost me like $1,200 to keep my server open because I was like, "Hey, it was Bill O'Reilly came out the day after the election, the 2012 election, and said, well, there's just not enough white people." And I was like, I am damn near translucent. and my children are inexplicably more Caucasian than I am, and we did not vote for you. And I'm in a red state. I'm in the suburbs. I'm a small businessman. I'm a job creator. Geez, where'd you guys, I have a short haircut, where'd you guys miss? And I went down the line of like science. You can't say that physics are lies out of Satan's butthole. That won't work. Iraq, aren't you guys supposed to be good at war? And you're really mean. And and I was like, that's why people didn't vote for you. And you should either harmonize with the reality here, or your party's going to go out of business. And I failed to see the alternative option of complete and total sedition financed by hostile foreign intelligence services. Even that escaped even my 2012 10-year-old.
What kind of futurist are you? Come on.
Let's be honest. I don't think Reince Priebus expected either when he was drafting the autopsy that instead they were going to be like, you know what? Fuck you. We're going to go the other way, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What if we sold out to foreign powers?
Fucking hard on minorities that you can't even see them, right? Like
this is a good post-mortem because, look, for those of us who, show up and do shows and listen to us and our opinions and whatnot, it's good, for the audience to see, there's stuff we get wrong and that, challenges our cognitive biases. When Trump went straight at the Latin community and knowing that the demographics, the way I do that, Rachel, that way, way better. I'm going, wait a minute. There is a big conservative contingent, but that there's also across the board, Democratic voters in there and people who will take that the wrong way. I was like, he's just cut his own throat here politically. And that wasn't true because I didn't understand the role of Facebook and of saying something that's shocking and then finding the people who normally don't vote, but who did resonate with that and then feed that. That was evil genius. That
if you have no morals and understand psychology, it's easy to fuck people up.
Yeah. But there is a piece of this that's actually, amongst the Latino voters that are doing quite well for Republicans in the last primaries as well. It seems to me that they've been able to discover, and maybe we just haven't had our been finely tuned to this, that there is a lot of fear amongst Latinos, especially along the southern border, of other immigrants coming into that area, that they don't want to be swamped by competition at their workplaces or at or just in general. They don't feel like it's the same.
Some of them are with the cartels.
Yes, exactly.
But let's be honest, guys, I can tell you right now, when number one, the problem with Latinos that Democrats are having is that somebody like me came along and said to the Republicans, as Eric was just pointing out, hey, let me go and hunt minority voters along education, because if we already have this rich de-alignment of non-college educated white dudes, especially, we could probably go in there and push them with the same cultural wedges and get more. And you know what? Instead of the side that I'm on, that side's let's fucking throw some money at that. That seems like a good idea. And then when it worked, they expanded it. And this will be the fourth election cycle. So that special that we saw this week down in South Texas is a story of the Republican Party. Two stories. Number one, Democrats not understanding symbolic, reasons to contest shit at certain times and not others, right? Even if it's a waste of money, or technically, because the seat is the temporary seat. Okay. But the other thing is, it's all the Democrats running around with their hair on the fire. Oh my God, it's an 80% Latino district. It's always been Democratic. Well, it's also one of the lowest college educated electorates in the House. And if you're going there with digital and direct mail and radio, and you're pushing those Latino voters away from us, they're not winning them hey, vote for Republicans, we're so awesome. They're winning them by saying the Democrats are coming to inflict socialism on you economically and turn your boy children into girls, right? That's the message that they're going with, especially this cycle.
Yeah, that is the message, right? You point the trans thing is such a big thing, and we're seeing it in so many horrific ways now. There's a bunch of LGBTQ pride events that have been canceled in the red states and around the country because of fear of intimidation and these threats that they're having. This is the fear that they basically are selling Americans right now, that instead of the real fear, which is the end of democracy and your vote doesn't count, they're selling, we're going to turn your boys into girls.
Exactly.
That's
I
working
mean,
for
at the
us.
end of the day, your messaging is not in a vacuum, right? So at the end of the day, the message over there is Democrats are scary. They're going to take all your money. They're going to turn America into a socialist hellhole. Their rhetoric over there is that we stole the election, that we have an illegal president, that we are above the law. Okay, like they've made up all of these criminal fantasies about people like Hillary Clinton and Peter Strzok and blah blah blah. And so to them, we're the lawless, out of control, anti-democratic threat. And that's the message that the Republican base will get. The Latino base or Latino voter file, as well as a lot of the suburban voter file, will be hit with this message of the schools, this idea that somehow Republicans are better at education, right? It's just ridiculous, right? But it's a powerful message, and we're talking policy and they're talking fear. I can tell you who's going to win.
And inflation. I mean, they've got inflation rigged to the highest levels now. So you're gonna get this rising prices all the way through the elections, and then right afterwards, of course, it looks like it might lessen. Sorry, Eric, I interrupted you a little bit there. Go ahead.
No, I mean 8% per week grocery increase is going to make any voter pissed off. So if anybody, it's why we have, we're lucky, I think, that Attorney General Garland is really empowering the antitrust section more than any time in the last 20, 30 years. Really putting back 30 years of financialization, private equity, and Bain Capital style roll them up strategy. Because when you have only one or two or three big, bottlenecks, choke points in any distribution system, and especially if they're beholden, like let's say they've got some tax evasion going on or whatever, and they would love to see a return to the Trump era. It's in their interest to make, life under, people like Biden and Garland and the rest of the administration seem like it's crazy, which, we're keeping our head, we're at the 50,000 foot view. We're watching Ukraine. We're watching, prosecutions for sedition and whatnot. And they're watching no Jif peanut butter, which was because of listeria, not jerking people around. But, the price of steak going up, 6-7% a week. And then, private equity is flooding rentals in suburban areas and secondary and tertiary markets. So rent's going up way beyond wages. Now, if you can only really pull that off, because there's really no organic reason for that. And Putin's war,
Putin's war is a factor, yeah, for sure. Though
it's a factor. There are some disruptions in the supply chain, but we didn't have that much coming out of Vladivostok that got that got messed up. If Canada stopped trading with us, we'd feel that quick. But in any event, it's a smart play. If you don't want to be held accountable for your financial schemes and tax evasion and whatnot, then the Republicans are the way to go, because they do not want to prosecute felonies, because a lot of them have committed quite a few of them. And that's just talking about the spouses of...
contrary prayer. I think they're going to be plenty happy to prosecute shit as long as the perpetrator is a Democrat or aligned with the Democrats. I think we're going to see the most politicized, crazy shit we've ever seen in this country come out. And once they take over, especially if they win the presidency in 24.
Boy,
we almost got lucky that Trump won in 16 and took over in 17, and they had both chambers of the Congress, and so there was really not a lot of there was no benefit for them politicizing prosecutions there. They were in control of everything, so it would have poked the bear a little bit too much.
Right. Instead, they were burying their investigations into Mueller. That was what they did with
this. They're very clear. They're telling people, as soon as we take over, we're going to impeach Biden. We're going to investigate Nancy Pelosi. I mean, that's crazy third world shit, guys. And they're not pretending. I mean, it's coming right out of the Republican leadership now. So I would take it seriously.
And they're taking not only that, Rachel, you're saying, listen to what they're saying and believe it, because that's in fact what they're saying. But they are run by, they have some really questionable foreign forces that are in there, supporting their agenda. And I know you don't like to talk about this, Rachel, so much because it doesn't impact sort of daily voters. But for me, it's such a big issue that, there are these unseen foreign forces, intelligence forces, or whatever you want to call them, that are impacting our elections. We saw it in 2016, we saw it in 2020. We're going to see it again. It doesn't seem to impact American voters. I mean, people don't seem to, either they don't digest the fact that it's happening, or they don't care that it's happening because it must have been happening all along, or they just don't see it as a really big threat. Which is it, Rachel? What's really going on?
You can't feel threatened by the shit you don't know about, Zev. Okay? That's like the story of the American electorate. Want to know why Americans aren't freaked out right now? They have no fucking idea what's going on. Okay? If you're in the information bubble, you're talking about a quarter of the country. And how do we know? Because it's the 20 million viewers that tuned in to the primetime Jan 6. Okay? And that's exactly 1 out of every 4 Americans, by the way, and we're talking about across the spectrum. So, all of us that watched it, plus all of the people in the DC Beltway media landscape that watched it, which is not an insignificant number, but it becomes insignificant quickly when you throw it into the American population. Keeping in mind, the entire enlisted U.S. military is about 2% at any given time of the U.S. population. Right. So, observationally, things can get very distorted in how we think. So, it really is something, isn't it?
That number is really interesting. So 20 million watched the thing, but that only accounts for, what do you say,
1 in 4.
To 25%.
So, like, if you've been following me on Twitter for months leading in, I'm like, listen, it's going to help that they have a really great strategy, and they have aced the base on the intent.
They've done a great job.
Presentation. It's not the fault of the committee that Judge Ledick had a stroke and speaks slowly. I'm glad they didn't open with Judge Ledick in prime time, right? But at the end of the day, they needed to make it very clear, and what they laid out yesterday was very clear about the legal, intricacies of this Eastman plot, right? And how one of the most conservative jurists in the federal judiciary sees it as not just a threat to American democracy, but a clear and present danger, and ongoing one, right? So, in terms of that, it has been a well orchestrated, and Cheney and the committee have been doing good at putting out lots of video content that is shareable. So, you got to assume maybe 40% of the public will see primary source material of the most important news story of arguably the American experiment.
Probably,
okay?
yes.
So when you think about who even fucking knows about foreign money other than like this idea that Russia spent in 2016. When you think about the percentage of the electorate, Zev, that knows about that, we're talking about a very small percent. So they can't be concerned about it because they don't know.
Yep. Wow. So they're just going to continue voting Republicans into power based on, hey, the oil price is higher, because that's just what they can
based on election messaging. I mean, and this is something us grand strategists forget about, the strategists in the trenches like Rachel are doing is like, policy versus fear. I mean, you got to have something better than that, and you can complain about it, but that's how it works because people are at work and, they don't care that Dmitry Rabovlev, bought Trump's house for twice what it was worth. They don't care, which is fine. But with regards to Judge Luttig and that stuff, speaking of partisanship, I saw some people complaining online. Oh, these guys, have you looked them up? Some of these witnesses, they're complete wingnuts. It's like, I think that's the point. That these are not the moderates. These are not never Trumpers. Yep. These are not, might just become a Democrat, now that I think about it. No, these are dyed in the wool
Republicans. They just
are. Fucking Luttig is like the inspiration of the Federalist Society, dude. Like he's the OG boss, right? Like, I mean, God, and here's this man being like, look, we're supposed to care about the Constitution. Like, that's the whole fucking point of the Federalist
Society. Took it
Society.
too far. No, we fucked up. Stop, boys. I mean, and that is what to keep, because there's a whole lot of firearms in this country. And if there's a narrative out there that like, oh, this is a Dem takeover. It's like, no, I love Liz Cheney up there, she's just got that the mom lecturing the teenager thing, like, listen, mister, enough of your nonsense. And this is how it is. And it's just like, it's not particularly febrile. It's not particularly angry. It's just like, this is what happened. This is what you did. Yep. And as we discussed before, there are consequences, mister. And I think that really speaks on a base level. And of course, she is not a moderate. This is Dick Cheney, Darth Vader's little baby. This is Dick Cheney's daughter. So they can't go, a bunch of libtards. I don't think so. You got Federalist Society guy and the spawn of Dick Cheney. You guys just know this is a group of you fucked up and committed some felonies. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about Clarence Thomas? I mean, if this was the other side of the aisle, and Clarence Thomas was supporting some Democratic points of view, I mean, he'd be run out of town he'd be run out of town. And here he is as a Republican.
Democratic points of view, like not murdering Congress, like that kind of liberal stuff.
Any Democratic point of view, he'd be run out of town. But here's the wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice who's still on the Supreme Court. When in fact, we all can see what she's done. I mean, she's got text messages, she's got emails, she's just been seditioning everywhere. So that's a term. Is that a term? So how is this possible? It's what it is now. Yeah, I think it is a verb. But how is it possible that it's that he's there? I just don't see. Okay, it's so counterintuitive that this man is still.
What's he gonna do?
Retired.
Set himself on fire and run out of the building. You're right. I'm a traitor. Goodbye.
It used to be that's what you did. It used to be like, I got caught in this scandal and I'm going to retire.
No, Zev, this shit has never happened before.
If Sotomayor's
really bad.
Went to a fucking I don't know, like a climate rally.
Yeah,
right? That would
exactly.
be it. It would
a
be
union rally.
Wall-to-wall crisis coverage.
Yeah, exactly. But it's Thomas, no problem. Let them keep doing it. Thomas is out. We know that. We know that she's been conservative all along. There's nothing new here. It's
conservative. That's why the contrast is so important. This is not we're criminalizing being conservative. Yes. Here's a whole bunch of people that are far more conservative than the most conservative guy you know. Right. These people would all be basically offensive to most moderate voters on their most genteel day. They're not in trouble. They're not going to prison. We are not criminalizing republicanism. We're not criminalizing being conservative. We are criminalizing crime. We are criminalizing felony, and that was already criminal. And if you committed a felony, then go to prison. And it's.
But they're allowed to. It seems they're allowed to. I mean, it seems like Thomas is going to get away with it. I mean, the worst she's gotten so far is an invitation to come and testify, which she's looking forward to. I think
it's so premature to be like, they're going to all get away. I mean, this drives me fucking nuts, and I don't have time on Twitter to respond to people and be like, look, let me explain something to you, motherfucker. It takes time, okay? It takes time. And yes, like the Justice Department understands that they have a deadline with a guillotine, okay? But it still takes a lot of time for justice to occur. What I'm telling people now, this has been stunning. Like evidence that they have, that we've seen so far, like holy shit, man. Right?
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. They've done a great job.
They've got her leaning on state representatives. I mean, think about the power imbalance there. You've got somebody who's got a part-time pet food store, right? Mm-hmm. that runs for the whatever legislature in their state, right? Mm-hmm. And the spouse of a U.S. Supreme Court justice calls them personally or writes them personally and says, "You imbalance," and the corruption is just stunning. And they were just bashing evidence of it.
We're having all sorts of weird technical issues, I should point out, by the way, which is why I'm trying to figure out why I'm leaning all over. If you're trying to figure out why I'm leaning all over the place, I don't know if you guys can see the feed properly, but I know that
Eric got paused at a great one that time.
Yeah, so Eric,
I've been
missed you.
Paused in some terrible positions.
All right, so I apologize for so I'm really sorry about that. Maybe we should all have Ginni Thomas pictures up and we'll just do the show.
I like that.
That's very funny. So I apologize to people watching at home. I don't know what's going on, but maybe Ginni Thomas is in the system tonight. Maybe she's had too many gins. why is it that we also have like all these people with these strangest names like Ginny and Julian in the news all the time? I mean, who calls themselves Ginny or Julian? Only people like in 20th century, like early 20th century period dramas are called Ginny and Julian. You know, right? I mean,
Hey,
who has a son called?
isn't the dude that owns Green Food, whatever supplements, the also named Jenny?
Oh, really? I don't know
I'm just
that.
teasing you.
Okay.
I'm sure,
Don't
like,
do that
somewhere
to me.
out there's an audience member that you've just offended.
Just
by
offended.
making-
No, I like the names. They sound very nice. They just seem to be everywhere in the news.
Now we
So,
backpedal. See, this
so
is
we
called
try. I'm
backpedaling,
trying.
everyone.
You can call me Ray or you can call me Jay, but just don't call me guilty of 18 U.S. Code 2384.
Which is just the segue I was trying to make. You know, I don't know which law you were trying to talk about there, but
Seditious
Julian Assange.
conspiracy.
I would like to talk about Julian Assange, if we could, which also maybe related
Sure.
to seditious conspiracy, but a different one. So what's going on, Eric? You know the story. I mean, I read it every once in a while. I glaze over because I just like, what's this about?
Well,
So maybe you can
Julian
explain it to us.
Julian Assange is coming to the United States to face charges of espionage that date back
Good.
12 years.
But these are not the charges related to the 2016 election rigging, which is what he was also involved in. These are charges
he wasn't-
related.
This is, I mean, have you, for the folks at home who have never read, anyone who's thinking this is about publishing, they didn't read the superseding indictment involving, Assange's espionage operations with Chelsea Manning.
Right.
Private Manning was handed custom-made hacking tools to get further into Pentagon infrastructure, and that
Wow.
ain't journalism. Oh yeah.
No.
I don't know that.
Oh, this was not just none of this stuff was just, oh, well, I was a witness. I whistle blew.
No.
Whistleblowers don't hack into different levels of the computer system in a classified setting than they're normally supposed to have access to at their rank.
Mm.
That's not whistleblowing. That's espionage.
right.
And,
Dude, that's a strong case. You're saying it's still a strong case, even though she's not in prison anymore. I mean, who's she dating now? I don't know if she was dating
I
someone.
don't care who anybody dates.
Just like she's a celebrity
Manning-
of some sort.
Manning's been pretty quiet these past few years. There was some issue there where, as part of the plea deal, they were supposed to go and testify to the grand jury. There was a refusal there, and there was some incarceration. But that's kind of in the past. As far as the Assange stuff, Assange has been in the United Kingdom, first under the Ecuadorian regime, and then transferred into the hands of the UK. And the Home Secretary Priti Patel just signed. The court's been basically everything had been cleared by the courts, and now it was waiting on the Home Secretary to make the decision and sign the papers, and that just happened. It's almost like there's a whole lot of stuff happening at the same time that isn't just the 2016 election, but a great deal of operations that led up to it. Because really, without WikiLeaks, you do not have the culture of 2016 where leaks from the FBI or leaks from DNC emails or, a FISA, the existence of a FISA warrant. None of that's journalism.
Right.
Without WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks opened the door to that, and then our great mainstream media said, "Oh no, let's talk about this." For some reason that geez, why did they not think? Oh, I don't want to be complicit in 18 U.S. Code 793, illegal traffic of stolen defense information. I would hate to be part of that, so I'm not going to treat this like journalism since it's a felony, and they were accessories to that felony, incidentally. Well, they jumped right in. Why it's still, I find it curious. Why did they breach the law like that? Because this is not a journalistic ethics question. It's a felony question, and they aided and abetted a felony. But anyhow,
but Assange, just to be clear here, because this debate is quite serious, right? About whether Assange is considered a journalist or not. I mean, we don't really want journalists to be prosecuted easily for publishing secret documents that they happen to get their hands on. We do want to punish people who are committing crimes like espionage pretty seriously if they're doing similar things. So it's true.
Journalists who give people tools to hack into the Pentagon using something that was coded somewhere that they knew people that could hack into the Pentagon and are American. We call them spies.
They are
No
spies.
doubt.
In fact, that's exactly right. They're not journalists anymore. Even if they're working for journalistic organizations, even if they look like journalists, even if they walk around with cards that say press on them, still if they have hacking stuff that they're handing over, definitely not something I ever learned at journalism school. I think. No, definitely not. So we're not going to get Assange because he is testified, because this is about the other case involving Manning. It apparently means that we can't put him on the court to face the other charges for 2016. I don't know what the term is. There's some legal term.
He was never charged for it, so he can't. There's no case.
It never will be. It could never be. Because you can only get one shot at this, apparently. So we went with the Manning shot versus the.
No, we can.
Oh, is that part of the extradition deal?
Yes.
We can only charge him one crime?
It's a legal term. I'm not sure what the legal term is, but it's.
I've never heard of anything like that.
Oh, really? It was, well, maybe I misread my Twitter feed, but it seemed like it was a legitimate thing that was coming up today. That there was only be this would be it. This would be the shot to get Assange. If we didn't get him on this, we wouldn't be able to go and prosecute 2016 afterwards. Which would be, I don't know, that to me seems like a bad idea. We'd want to prosecute 2016.
That's not double jeopardy.
Yeah, right.
That's not
double jeopardy. It's not. There's some kind of law called simulation or something like that, or legal principle called simulation, which I'd never heard of. But no,
I'll have to look into it.
Okay, yes.
I think our MLAT treaty with our mutual legal assistance treaty with the United Kingdom, they definitely wanted the death penalty taken off the table because they you know, I think it's a great reason to get rid of the death penalty personally, because we're one of 5 countries that allows that legally, and it messes up the diplomacy. And I think if you don't believe governments can pave roads properly or expand Medicaid properly, then having them commit homicide properly probably doesn't make sense. That's just my view.
That's very compelling. I like that.
Small government, okay, but let's not have them shoot us in the face. Just a thought. We can shoot each other in the face just fine.
If Assange comes over, sorry, I'll interrupt your point. Sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt
that's what I think the British wanted us to make sure that was off the table, because I think that's part of their some of their domestic politics, which is more the rule than the exception. And this is as far as the Assange case, with the actions that he had taken. This is as far as that got. The events surrounding Manning. I can't remember if Snowden, anything related to Snowden, has been charged. I think Snowden's been charged. We've seen that. But either way, look, if you're going to get 100 years in prison, it kind of doesn't matter if you get 300 years in prison, So, but more importantly, we're going to, getting him over here. I think the timing here, as we go at the attempt to overthrow the government to keep the Trump regime in place. You go back to how did this get here? And part of the way we got here was Assange. And part of it was WikiLeaks and Russian intelligence behind them.
Yep.
When we get him, and then we can, now we can deal with that, because of course there's a lot of Russian influence and other foreign influence in the UK. So it's like, you give us that guy, boop, he's over here. It seems like we are walking day by day, getting very, very close to telling people what happened, because when you go to January 6th and go, God, how the hell did the wife of a sitting Supreme Court judge end up being the middleman between a bunch of domestic terrorists and the president and Congress, and what the hell is going on here? I think you need to go back 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, to all sorts of things like, okay, why was the NRA pushing so many guns? And, why were we desensitizing people to the notion of, vigilantism and, militarized policing and school shootings and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch to unpack for this country. Yeah. And I think it starts, we're rewinding to 2016, and Assange has to come over for that.
I like what you're saying, because what you're basically saying, it doesn't matter if he gets off the case, if he gets, doesn't get found guilty in the case. What's really important is that we debrief him, and then we get information from him, and get him cooperating with us, because he might have a lot of detail about how the other side works that we might find very interesting. the sides
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
sides,
So I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of nice to have on our side. I feel the same way about Snowden and Greenwald and all the rest of them. They should be brought back here and face charges. I mean, of course, they're not wanting to do that.
I have
but
never defended Glenn Greenwald
now you
in
want to hear
anything,
me
and I'm
defend
not going
Glenn
to. But he
Greenwald.
hasn't been charged with a crime, so there's no reason to extradite him.
But when we like to have
night
him
is
back,
young.
Unfortunately, being a total douchebag is not illegal.
No. Well, it can be in parts of the world, but
Or he would be at The Hague.
Yeah.
You know what the fuck? You know why I hate Glenn? Like, and this is why I hate Glenn Greenwald. Is he thinks he's a good guy, and he thinks what he does is good and helpful, and it's like, dude, you shit on democracy in so many different ways.
I think he got.
You are like, he is what he hates. He purports to hate. You know, it drives me nuts.
Did he
I
get
wouldn't
trapped?
trade places with him.
Yeah. Did he get trapped? What's going on there with Glenn Greenwald? I never quite understood that whole story. Like, I mean, he seemed like a legitimate kind of guy at the beginning, like Snowden was as well. And then, you know, what happened with Greenwald? Was he just trapped? Was he caught in a trap of some sort? Like, it seems to me that he turned into a really evil dude quite quickly.
Yeah, he really he went off the deep end. And I mean, Matt Taibbi kind of experienced that same trajectory. Like when he was first reporting for Rolling Stone, he was doing some of the best shit they were putting out. And then like, I don't know what happened, you know?
Yeah, it is interesting.
So, but I mean, if you can get fired from The Intercept.
I don't know about The Intercept because I actually do enjoy reading The Intercept.
Keep in mind, the reason they had to let him go is he was trying to argue they were censoring him, and all they were like trying to do is be like, dude, we can't print actual bullshit. We can print things that are more speculative than and less like, you know, corporate filtered. I mean, like this show, right? Like they can, but we can't actually just like print like a QAnon conspiracy theory, which is what I don't know what the story was about anymore, but that was what the quality of the information was. And he ended up quitting. And ever since then, he's been, you know, a thorn in the side of democracy. Like, what a fucking terrible thing to do with yourself.
I'm sure he's not chosen to do this. I mean, it feels to me, yeah. But The Intercept's another interesting thing because it is, you know, speaking about journalism that is maybe connected to intelligence in different ways. I mean, you never really know where The Intercept comes at you. You know, it's sort of like, it's got great journalists working there, actually, and there are some really good, interesting stories that show up all the time with information that you'd never get anywhere else. And I don't understand quite how they get funded and how they get out there, but you know, the more the merrier, I guess, as long as they're not lying to me.
I mean, I am going to say, like, they're not. I mean, if there's like some sourcing skepticism, because like at the New York Times, shit's got to be triple or even quadruple sourced, a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you don't see that kind of standard in other agencies, you know. And if he shows up and they're like, look, this information's bad, like it's not like they have my point is they don't have a bias towards filtering out shit that's bad to publish, right? It's The Intercept. They will publish it as long as they can even get enough meat on the hook to verify it, you know?
I mean, I gotta say, some of these stories I really am very impressed by.
I'm sure.
As an investigative journalist, they get there. They get the story that other people can't get. I don't know how they do it. They sometimes omit certain things where you're like, that should have been in the story. But, you know, other than that, I believe them a lot more than I believe the New York Times sometimes because, you know, the New York Times, you know, who knows what that is these days.
There's a big media story that broke this week involving the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
The Department of Justice identified the subject of an Office of Inspector General memo about inappropriate contact between senior FBI personnel and the media. And the person that was named is a guy named Michael Steinbach, who was the executive assistant director for the National Security Branch. And he retired suddenly in March 2017 and then refused to be interviewed by the OIG's office. And he is cited in these reports for having had media contacts outside of the Office of Public Affairs. And he claims that was at the behest of James Comey and other senior leadership to get out there and engage with media and make sure that our brand is protected at the FBI and that the story is out there, is the quotes that
So
came out.
in the middle of the 2016 hubbub and all of that, everyone concerned about whether enough information was coming out, Comey was saying, go get out there, talk to people. And maybe that's not the right thing to have done, considering.
Well, here's the thing.
Rules.
There's an
Rules are
office
not to be
of
broken
public.
here.
There's an office of public affairs, and all those contacts are tracked. And if there's any exchange of monetary value, that has to go under federal rules. And apparently, there are allegations about some dinners that were taken, and apparently invitations to the White House Correspondents' Dinner as the guest of a media company.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it was
Are we talking about Steinbach, or it involves other people?
This is all one guy. This is all Steinbach.
So he went to the White House Correspondents'
Dinner. Apparently, I think either with somebody from New York Times or elsewhere, and maybe it was the CNN journalist said, "You're cheating on me with that other journalist."
That is how you. By the way, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's how it works. Each media organization has to sort of grab a big political star and invite them to come sit at their table. So that's how. Well, political or celebrity star.
Well, political and national security are different.
Yes, yeah. I've never seen an FBI guy at any of those things. That's interesting.
That's what I was gonna say. That's not like he's not. Nobody knows who this dude is.
Yeah.
There's no star value in that.
Wouldn't we all invite like Al Franken with us to just crack jokes or something?
Yeah.
Right? There are politicians.
I would actually wear an Al Franken dress with his hands up on my tits like that. Like, that'd be awesome.
Me too. Dude. Me too.
Or wait, am I confusing this White House Correspondents thingy-mabobber with, like, the Oscars? I think that might be.
He's making another run for it, by the way. Not at the movies, but Al Franken's wanting to be a senator again, apparently. So he's going to try.
He is? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Whether he wants to do Stuart
guess what? It was a fucking joke, dude, because he was a comedian that was hired to be funny. And yeah, it was an inappropriate joke. And I'm sure he felt bad and learned his lesson, but he didn't mean he had to be canceled.
Compared to what happened afterwards at the White House, compared to that president, I mean, anything can be forgiven before, right? So,
but even before that, like, I'm glad we're kind of like pulling back a little bit now, like the left, because it involves self-policing right? On this idea that like people need to be shunned, right? Like that people have to be not just have 24 hours or 36 hours of a bad news cycle. They have to be black fucking bald professionally.
There's something about this.
Things you can do that meet the standard of necessitation for that. But an offhand joke, a bad joke as a comedian, a tweet that is meant to be funny, but like other people just act like you meant it seriously. That kind of shit just drives me nuts. Dude.
Right. I mean, and no one's perfect. No one's ever going to be perfect all the time. People are going to make mistakes. Perfect. I mean, especially if they didn't expect to be in the public sector and then they find themselves there. It's like, okay, maybe they shouldn't have done that thing 10 years ago, but they did it. They just did it because they didn't know they're going to be in this position. And,
no shit. That and like standards. I mean, especially the across time shit drives me nuts because it's like, dude, let me tell you a little bit about 1990. Right?
You mean like political standards of decorum in the office kind of a thing?
Yeah. What happened in 95? Tell us, Rachel. We want to hear the story about 1995.
I'll tell you.
Shit was so different when I was in high school. Like almost everybody I knew in high school dated somebody who was above the age of 18.
Right. And you've.
I thought you were talking about DC, where back in that period of time, like. All the female staffers in the Senate knew, do not get on the elevator with Jesse Helms.
Yes.
That old hand is going right up that new skirt.
Yeah. That's the kind of egregious shit like you should be canceled for.
Yes.
I believe again, there's a felony. This is not, we're singling anybody out. It's a felony. It's assault.
Yes. But I want to hear about the 95 story.
The point, though, Eric, is that like, honest to God, like there is not a lot of criminal prosecutions for that kind of activity. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been. I'm saying we've always had it wrong. But back then, when you grabbed or slapped somebody in the ass, you weren't facing a felony. I mean, there wasn't even like people didn't conceptualize that as sexual assault the way they do now. Like, especially like the less, I mean, obviously putting your hand up somebody's skirt is a sexual assault, but I'm talking about like butt slapping, and like people were just, the behavior standards back in the 80s and the 90s were so different than they are now.
They really are, and that's a good thing. I mean, that we've evolved somewhat,
Yep.
but and yet our reaction sometimes seems to be so conservative, especially amongst the Democrats. So, it feels they're holding themselves to a higher level of purity than the Republicans, certainly.
No
As
doubt, right?
everyone
And you can't have you can't apply today's standards to. My point is this: like, you can't apply like today's standards to people that existed, or when you even people who are still alive today.
Yeah.
That when they were in the 80s, it's not today's standard. So there's behavior that transcends these time differences that's so overtly bad, like Jesse Helms's behavior. But a lot of it is differences in how humans interact, men and women, parents and kids. I mean, the shit that we did as kids, there's not a parent out here that lets their kid do the shit that we did every day, and that was our
How did we
norm.
survive to this point?
Well, spare a thought for Rachel, not Rachel, Bobart. What's her first name? I just slipped my mind. Lauren Bobart. Lauren Bobart. Sorry, just slipped my mind. I got it. Just it's coming towards the end of the show, so my brain's just turning off. But Lauren Bobart was apparently she got into politics was through Ted Cruz. We found out this week, and when she was an escort,
Yeah, she
I believe.
did.
And
we confirmed this though. I was under the impression this has not been confirmed.
Oh, okay, maybe
so let's
I'm
just
confirmed.
be clear.
This is pure gossip.
I'm
I got a
happy
little
to
more
speculate
confirmation on
about
it.
the fact that Lauren Bobart cut her teeth on Ted Cruz's,
Nobody
I just
deserves
wanna
it
be
more than Ted.
clear if I'm being speculatory about it.
Yeah, but so let's say we're speculating about a piece of gossip here, but isn't that interesting? Let me talk about someone who's turned her life around. It's like it's like a Pretty Woman story, basically.
Is it? Is it? Because first of all, Explore Talent is the modeling agency that they've gotten a surprising number of these Insta pundit, Insta congressional figures off from, and it's tied to the adult industry, and it's run by an Israeli mobster, and that's just how that is. And it's out of Explore Talent's out of Las Vegas, and Bobert had a profile on there. Melissa Caroni, who was the drunk the defrauded voter that Rudy brought to the Michigan State House as part of the treason plot. She's an actress. And
Explore Talent.
Candace Owens, who was a Insta Republican figure, who I think is married to Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's
is also just another horrible fucking fear capitalist human being.
I mean, that dude has like Russian investment positions. He's straight up.
Oh, I mean
agent.
Candace, but yeah, he's bad too.
Oh, okay. They all came off this website. That also, does some light porno if you want. I mean, and I actually find that the latter mentioned industry to be way better run and cleaner than this thing of we're gonna can we also hire you to help us create a narrative that'll allow us to murder Congress? That's the problem. And if you're getting your congressional reps not from local civic leaders, business leaders, the guy who runs the hospital, maybe I will go service in Washington or whatever. If you're getting people off the we either have some we got some cam girl work, or you can be in Congress and bring a Glock to Congress on day one.
Yeah, well, Madison Coulthard as well had those things as well. So they maybe need to pick better representatives.
His behavior at that Russian casino where he met his wife that doesn't exist is unconscionable.
Does she not exist at all? Does she actually have figments?
I don't know if the wife does. But Rachel, were you on the show and talking about like the Madison Coulthard's cover story?
Yes,
that
you guys were the ones that informed me of his Russian mail order.
The Russian casino that doesn't exist. It's like a fucking episode of Doctor Who. It's like they go through time, and he meets a Russian girl at a CrossFit event in time, and then
Do we know who's going to replace Madison? Do we have an idea yet?
Let me show you guys my new mail order bride.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. This is a Hammy. I predict Hammy. We're waiting for Rachel to introduce us to her new.
I have additional
Mail order
squishmallows. We're waiting
bride.
on mail order brides. Where's this
Oh,
going?
oh, look at that. Oh, what an attractive bride. Look at that.
He comes from the land of sheepadoodles.
And hey, Mr. Hammy, how are you, Hamilton? It's good to see you again, buddy.
My mom said I could come say hi.
You're just trying to rush us to the end of the show because normally you get a 5 o'clock hug from him, and here it is, almost 5 o'clock.
He can't hug me today because see, look, now he's compensating.
Oh,
Look at him. Oh, he's so sweet.
he is a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart. I want a dog just like that. I'm sure it makes life much nicer because he's like
I
such a
gotta
gentle
tell
soul.
you, dude, it's like having like a serotonin high on tap, you know?
Yeah, I need one of those. So I think that's it. That's the show. You know, by the way, this is the second last after show of this season. So I had a whole other thing.
I knew there
prepared.
were people who came just to see Hammy, and I didn't want to deny them.
No, and this will be the second last time they'll be able to see Hamilton in the season, because in 2 weeks we're going to stop the show for live shows. We'll continue to run a whole bunch of other things. And I had a whole thing I was going to share with you about funding and all this other stuff, but my computer has basically let me do nothing tonight but show you these 3 faces that you're seeing all the hour. So I'm going to stick with that and probably end the show now. Tell us something that is very hopeful, if you could, on the way out here, other than Hamilton. Rachel, why don't you start?
Trump's gonna go to jail, motherfuckers, guilty as fuck.
Okay, I like that. Eric?
It's not all, the project is not done yet, but we are seeing the rule of law reassert itself. And yes, you can get in trouble just because something is a massive federal felony. Just from that, it'll, you too can get a pre-dawn raid from the FBI. And that warms the dark black cockles of my heart.
All I can say is put me on the pardon list, boys. Put me on the pardon.
Things you don't want on your epitaph.
By the way, if they're still doing the pardon thing so I don't die in prison, just go ahead and do that for me.
And my happy note for the night, it's the weekend. The weekend is officially here. It's 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock. So good night to everybody. And we'll see you again next week for the final episode of the After Show for this season. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Narrative is made possible by viewers like you. You too can support our independent journalism by going to www.patreon.com/narrative.